First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk. Guys, winter's here. It's cold. It's cold. Hey guys, I had a great question that came from one of my viewers. It's about dealing with trauma. And he wanted to know if I had any advice. What would I give? And he may be an individual who either is going through something himself or knows people who are facing these demons. And what I did right off the bat is I went to my boy William Young. He's an expert in this. He lived it. His advice is so spot on, but it's also so personal because he lived it. And I gave him this question and I wanted him to help me answer that. So what I'm going to do when we come back from our sponsor is I'm going to give this video over to Will. And Will is going to share his experience. And basically, if you need help, this is where you can go. So when we come back from our sponsor, the show goes to Will. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, you brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell is going to notify you every time I post a video. And when we come back from our sponsor, it'll be my honor to give this show over to William Young, author of When Home Becomes a Housing Unit. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Good morning or good evening, depending on whatever shift your seniority allows you to hold. I'm William Young, and I have a question. I have a question for you. My question is this. If I was to get assaulted, if I was to get punched in the face, if I was to get my nose broke and a couple of teeth knocked out and I skid across the floor of the day room, if I had blood pouring from my face, would you help me? Would you have my back? Would somebody help me to my feet and over to the medical unit so I could be seen by the nursing staff while they assessed me to see if my injuries were severe enough that I needed to be transported to a hospital? And if I was, would you go with me? Would one of you call my spouse, my wife, and let her know what had happened and that I was okay? Would you do that for me? I'm going to give you a minute to answer. Oh, you've already answered. Yes, the answer is probably yes. I have no doubt in my mind that there isn't a person out there that would help in that situation. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Although I know I have plenty of help if I get physically assaulted, I know that there are thousands of you that would run to my rescue and that would say, that would validate that I actually got hurt, that I had wounds that needed tended to. You would be there for me and you would help me. Those same people are not there when I start to talk about things that bother me. When I start to talk about the emotional weight of working in corrections and the damage that it can do. That's when people come out of the woodwork and they say, this job doesn't bother me, or if those things kind of bother you, Bill, you should get a different job. Now think about that for a second. How crazy is that? I don't know how many of you out there have ever walked into a room and have seen a body laying on the ground, okay? Or have had to hold somebody while your partner cut the rope or the sheet and felt that dead weight fall into your arms. These things that we see and that we say and that we have to do on a daily basis, they're crazy, and they slowly chip away at the person that we were before coming into the correctional facility. Now, I already can hear it, all right? And if you're one of those people that just say leave work at work and leave home at home, or if you're not cut out for it, then you should go do something else, then you should should probably go do something else right now. You should probably stop the video and you should go watch some videos on target practice or MMA fights or whatever you're doing in your spare time, because that behavior, that attitude is part of the problem. See, this job affects all of us very differently. Okay, trauma affects everybody very differently. There's a great analogy in the class that I teach, right, from corrections, fatigue to fulfillment by Desert Waters Correctional Outreach, that talks about a rubber band. And if you imagine a pack of rubber bands, the multi-pack that you buy, there are different sizes of those rubber bands. Some of them are very long and skinny, some of them are thick and fat, and that is a great representation of our ability to process trauma, right? And the crazy things that we see. Just because my rubber band can hold more, just because I can walk into a room and not visibly be affected by what I see, doesn't mean that the next guy should. And I absolutely should not shun that person or shame that person for not being able to carry the weight of the things that we see and say and have to do on a daily basis. For example, we had an attempted hanging a few years back, and I responded to it, and I was trying to get the officer to tell me the name of the inmate that was in the room. There were other officers and medical staff attending to him, and he couldn't answer. He was shaking so badly, and I asked him, I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "I've never seen anything like that before." Now, I had a couple of options there. I could have told him to suck it up, to move on. This is what happens. Welcome to the job. If you don't like it, go work at Walmart. I could have told him those things, right? But then what would have happened for him? He would have quit, or he would have internalized it, and then who knows? He could have been a raging alcoholic, right? He could have went home and put a gun in his mouth. I don't know. Seeing a person hang from something is kind of crazy, right? I don't care how many times you've done it. I've done it a lot. Okay? So what I did is I said, "Hey, let's have a conversation." I told the supervisor to get this guy to be relieved so I could take a walk with him. And we walked and we talked about it. And we shared I shared some thoughts. And I gave him my phone number and I said, "If you need anything, let me know." Right? We have to mobilize support like that. We can't just tell people to get over it. We can't just tell people it's part of the job. Right? Because even though we know that it is part of the job, it's still crazy to see. And guess what? When you are affected by the job, so much so that it is causing depression or suicidal thoughts, quitting the job doesn't make that stuff go away. If you go bag groceries at a grocery store, you don't get the image of that guy hanging out of your mind just because you don't go in and out of the facility anymore. So can we agree on that? Are you still with me on that? Let's go a little bit deeper, okay? Let's talk about some other things here. What about the non-incidents, okay? Corrections is a crazy, negatively charged environment, right? The slamming doors, the constant fights, the threats, the almost altercations all the time. It's a heavy, heavy burden to be the person who has the keys to get out of the door and you're standing in the way of hundreds of people who want to leave, right? That's a lot to carry. And so what do we tell them? We say, maybe this job isn't for you, right? So what happens to them? Think about the situation when you've been a little bit scared in corrections, or something's happened and you feel like, maybe I can't do this job. "Well, it's never happened to me, Bill. I'm great. I love this place." Again, I'm not talking about you. You can go watch your MMA videos. But what happens when you're supporting a family? What happens when you decided that this is the career that you're going to choose and all of a sudden you don't think you can do it anymore? And then you turn to your coworkers and they don't support you and they don't act like anything's bothering them. What happens? You internalize it and it sends you down this deep, dark rabbit hole of self-doubt, of self-isolation, and that's not good. That's not good at all. So what do you do if you find yourself in that spiral, right? If you're unable to sleep at night, if you're unable to, if the job has come home with you, what do you do? Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to talk to somebody. If you're in a situation where you're having trouble processing the job, or the job is coming home with you, you have to be honest with yourself. That's number one. Okay, it's okay to not be okay, right? Forget all of these other people, because corrections affects everybody. It just affects everybody a little bit differently. There are thousands of us that are walking wounded through the halls that would love to help you, to offer support for you. So the first thing you have to do is you have to admit that corrections could be the cause of some of this suicidal ideation, of some of this depression. And then you have to find somebody that you trust to talk to. Okay, if you don't talk about the things that haunt you, they will continue to haunt you, right? We all carry these demons around, but you have to talk to somebody. I don't care if it's a coworker. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care if it's your neighbor over the fence. I don't care if it's a priest or a pastor or somebody. But you have to start talking about the things that bother you. Okay, think about it like this. It's like a nightmare, right? You wake up from a nightmare and you're hyperventilating and you're huffing and you're puffing, and the more that you go on throughout your day, the more people you tell about your dream, the less scary that becomes, right? And that's what it is. And if you talk to a coworker and you talk to a friend or spouse and it's still not getting any better, then go get professional help, right? Go talk to a counselor. I made a video not too long ago about other people at the job thinking you're weak, right? Who gives a shit? Okay? They're not going to be there to take care of your family if you decide to check out. Okay? They're not going to be there to pay your bills if you can no longer work there. So forget what they say. But you have to go talk to somebody. You have to get help. And there's all kinds of options out there, like I said, to go get help. Okay, you can go to a counselor, you can go to your spiritual advisor, you can go to your friends. There's things like EMDR out there, the light therapy, there's support groups, there's all kinds of things out there for officers. But if you don't go and ask for help, you can't get the help. So that's the first thing that you have to understand. That stigma bullshit, you got to throw that out the window. Well, if I say something bothers me, it's going to end my career. No. Go get help. Even if it does end your career. Do you want it to end your career or do you want it to end your life? Right? Come on, guys. We can't let this... Did you know, let me tell you this. Did you know that the risk and the rate of suicide in corrections is higher than the general public and even higher than police officers? Okay, and that's just reported suicides. And do you know why that is? Do you understand why that is? Because the weight of the job, the things that we see and have to do on a daily basis are incredibly traumatic and incredibly crazy. And because we have this culture of toughness, because we're these big bad alpha males and alpha females, we're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to ask for help, and then it gets to the point where we put a gun in our mouth. It gets to the point where we're throwing an extension cord over the beam in the garage to see if it'll hold our weight. Don't get to that point. And don't feel like you're the only one that's ever been to that point. Your situation, your symptoms are not unique to yourself. There are thousands of us that are going through the same thing. There are thousands of us that are experiencing these ups and these downs and this darkness. You just have to find them. The majority of facilities have an employee assistance program, which you can go talk to, okay? They have peer support teams, a lot of them. Some of them are just getting them rolling. And if your facility doesn't have a peer support team, maybe you can be the person that spearheads that. Go get some peer support training and start building a team. Come up with some statistics and show your administrator how prevalent this is in corrections, right? Create something as simple as a resource sheet that I carry around in my bag with me, and all it is a piece of paper that has the suicide crisis hotline, a couple of websites and the EAP information on it, and then my information on it, right? And then I hand it out to employees if I feel like they need something. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't know even why I'm handing it to them, but I'm still going to give it to them. There are several resources out there, websites, desertwaters.com, armorup.org, Safe Call Now, even Tear Talk, is a great source of information. All of these places, all of these outlets can point you into the right direction. If you get a hold of one of us, I know Anthony or Russ or Keith or any of us, if you get a hold of us, we can help point you in the right direction. We don't know if you don't ask for help. And that's the main thing. You have to ask for help and be willing to accept help. And if you are one of those officers that are unaffected by the job, if nothing you see bothers you, then you have even a greater responsibility, because you have to help those that are walking through the halls wounded, those that are struggling. You can't shun them. You can't shame them. You can't expect them to be able to carry the weight of the facility just because you can, okay? You need to understand that, right? It's no different than somebody who can bench press 350 pounds expecting me to be able to do it just because we go to the same gym. It doesn't make any sense. And you need to understand that those actions and that attitude are contributing to the isolation that these officers are feeling. Here's the thing, I could talk about this thing for hours, but it all comes down to this. We have to check on each other. We have to watch each other's back for physical dangers and emotional dangers. Okay, and if we see a change in behavior, a change in attitude, maybe this individual is not coming to work and they've been a good solid employee for years, we have to check on them, right? And I know we're tired. I know that when you ask somebody if they're okay, you become emotionally invested in what's going on, and sometimes we don't always have that energy to do that, but we have to do that. All right, guys, I hope that you can listen to my rant and maybe get a couple of things out of it, things you can act upon. We'll post in the description of this video links to the resources that I mentioned. And if you need anything, you can email or get a hold of Anthony or myself, and we'll help you create those resource sheets. I can send you some information on peer support or whatever it is you need, okay? Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.